All right, and with that, Gail, may you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. So as we know, we are here for the public hearing regarding the proposed school budget for the 2024-2025 school year. And I have to say, it's quite inspiring to see an audience full of those who wish to speak on this subject matter. So just to give basic instructions for those who do speak, please come to the podium, share your name and your town of residence, and each person has 3 minutes to speak. Please be mindful of Charlotte, who will hold up a yellow card when you have 1 minute remaining in your time. And when your time is expired, you will see a red card. And we ask for you please to respectfully take your seat at that time. We as a board are listening attentively to you. However, it is policy that we do not respond to comments as they are being made, but we are listening to you. Also want to share again, so glad to see all of the faces that are here. And we do respectfully ask for the signs not to be held up at this time. We see them, we saw them, so thank you so much. We look forward to hearing your words regarding your comments and regarding the proposed budget. So again, tonight's public comments are specifically with respect to the proposed school budget. So we do have a list here, and I will begin by calling the names on the list. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. We shall start with John Moss.
Good evening. My name is John Moss. I'm a resident of West Hartford and a proud Aiken parent and King Philip parent. Yesterday, news broke that NICSH has rated West Hartford as the #1 town in Connecticut in which to live, in part because of its amazing schools. They are absolutely stellar, and I'm proud to be both a West Hartford graduate and parent. But I'm deeply concerned about how long we will retain such a distinction given the alarming cuts that are being proposed. I appreciate that the information that's been shared in budget presentations and on the district website has included valuable information, but what's been missing has been transparency about the eliminated positions that were paid for by federal COVID relief funds and therefore were never part of our town budget to begin with. But in reality, these are cuts that will affect our students directly, regardless as to whether the funding source was in the budget or not. I'm alarmed that the district has proposed to eliminate all elementary school counselors. Yes, all of them. Right now, every elementary school has a part-time school counselor who provides Tier 2 counseling to individual and groups of students, responds to students in crisis, pushes into classrooms for SEL, and offers as-needed restorative support to students. Our district employs teachers that provide academic support to struggling learners who need reading, writing, and other supports. This is, of course, absolutely appropriate, but I want to point out what seems to be a double standard. We have staff providing intervention for the academic skills that directly affect performance on standardized tests, but we're proposing to cut our school counselors that provide interventions that benefit not just the students that they directly support, but also every student in a classroom who's affected by challenging behaviors. Quite literally, these counselors have every single student on their caseload. But we are proposing eliminating this position, suggesting that we're prioritizing test scores over student well-being. At the same time, the role of elementary curriculum specialist is being eliminated in favor of adding assistant principals to the elementary schools. There's no doubt that our schools need the support of an additional administrator, particularly if we lose our school counselors. But at the same time, if the intention of adding APs is to allow principals to return to their role as instructional leaders, how can we remove the curriculum specialist whose very job it is to be instructional leaders and to work so closely with teachers to support them with ever-changing demands? Plus, who else will take on the work of curriculum specialists, including managing assessments, 504 leadership, student success teams, and more? The assistant principal's schedules will already be filled. We should maintain at least half of the CS positions to maintain our high level of academic instruction, and we must preserve our counselors to be responsive to the growing needs. For as long as I can remember, West Hartford has been a beacon district that attracts families from far and wide. But if we start eliminating the very roles that help our students to be so successful, how long will we continue to earn the distinction of being the top the top town for people to reside in West Hartford? Cuts hurt kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sarah Dolan.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Dolan, and I live at Chapman Road in West Hartford. Good evening. I'm here tonight to advocate against the cuts to the teacher positions in your current budget proposal for next school year. I'm specifically advocating for smaller class sizes than are proposed in this budget. I have been a Duffy parent for over a decade. My first son started kindergarten the same year Mrs. Laverty started as principal. My youngest son is currently in 3rd grade. I cannot overstate the confidence my husband and I have in Mrs. Laverty's leadership. She is focused, student-centered, detail-oriented, and tireless in her pursuit of excellent education at Duffy School. She hires phenomenal staff and creates a culture that is positive and purpose-driven. Duffy is a strong school with a strong team. But class size matters. Any teacher, not just in West Hartford, will tell you that there are unique challenges in the classroom now. Behaviors such as running away, loud and prolonged outbursts, the inability to sit for stretches of time, to work collaboratively or independently, as well as rates of anxiety, are far more prevalent than in the past. There are societal factors at play, fractured attention from technology use, repercussions from the pandemic, but the shift in learning behaviors and its effect on achievement is real and cannot be ignored. It has been said of education that there is no magic bullet in helping students thrive, but there is magic shrapnel, a variety of interventions and conditions which can impact learning. Having taught and consulted for a large urban public school system, I can say that class size is the most important piece of that magic. Glass and Smith's seminal research confirms that class size matters a great deal. And more recently, Baker's 2016 study found that, quote, ample research has indicated that children in smaller classes achieve better outcomes, both academic and otherwise, and that class size reduction can be an effective strategy for closing racially or socioeconomically based achievement gaps. Although it is certainly plausible that other uses of the same money might be equally or even more effective, there is little evidence to support this. We collected testimony from parents whose children have been in large class sizes, and the impact is real. One says, my son had a fabulous educational experience at Duffy. However, the increase in class size from 3rd to 4th grade has had a noticeable impact. We have noticed a lack of interest in learning from our son. In the past, he was bubbling over with information about his day, group projects, and specific feedback from the teacher. This year, he's very tired at the end of the day from the loud environment and needs decompression time before he can even share. He has also had trouble focusing, and although we've never had teacher emails in the past about behavior issues, we've needed to work with him this year to avoid disruptive behavior with other children. We directly attribute this to the number of children in his class. Please reconsider these current class size caps for more appropriate caps that better reflect the data on class size as well as the challenges faced in our district's classrooms. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Molly Town, or last initial T. Oh, all right. Okay.
Hello, my name is Molly Town, and I live at Glendale Road in West Hartford. I currently have 2 students at Duffy and 1 who graduated in 2022. I'm here tonight to express my concern over the large class sizes at Duffy. But this appears to be a district-wide issue, one that is not going to remedy itself. My oldest son's experience at Duffy was different from my younger 2 children's experiences. This is for a variety of reasons: COVID money, as well as smaller class sizes. Currently, there is no equity across the district on class sizes, and that inequity directly impacts Duffy as the largest school in our district. This is not because of a lack of leadership or the amazing teachers that we are lucky enough to have at Duffy. Duffy has 6 sections of grades 4 and 5 with the largest student population of 146 total students. Norfelt and Brayburn also have 6 sections with 23 and 22 less students respectively than Duffy, with 123 and 124 total students. Charter Oak has 7 class sections, but with 4 less students of 142 students. District-wide, there are 12 schools with classrooms with class sections of 24 plus students. Duffy makes up half of these class sections, with all of our 4th and 5th grades falling into this category. These numbers are astounding, inequitable, and unfair for our students. As a former special education administrator and teacher across all levels, I fully understand the importance of small class sizes for both general education and special education students. The increase of students in each classroom deters from opportunities for every student to maximize their learning as well as make social and emotional connections with classmates and teachers. The intensive academic program is housed at Duffy. These extremely large class sizes are not in the best interest of special education students when they are in general education classrooms. Families move to our district for these programs, but not to be put in classrooms with numbers this large. One Duffy parent told us, "My child transferred to Duffy from his zone school, Morley, to receive speech therapy. He has excelled because of the smaller class setting and individual attention he receives. I do not want to cheat my son from having a smaller class size at Morley that Morley could provide because of his different learning style. My zone school could not tailor my son's academic needs. We moved from New York City for this very reason." Your long-term solution is redistricting, but in the short term, it is your responsibility to create equity in classrooms across the district. Make 4 sections in the current 4th grade at Duffy, keep the current 3rd grade at 4 sections, and look across the district in ways that you can keep class sizes small. Adding a paraprofessional or an assistant principal to deal with behavior has no direct impact on students. Class sizes not only matter to our students, they matter to our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Stephanie, last initial D.
Have a handout. Would that be okay to send it down? Hi, my name is Stephanie Dominello, and I live on Stoner Drive in West Hartford. As a Duffy parent of 3 children at Duffy, I am concerned about the large class sizes at our school. I am here to talk about the inequity in class sizes across the district at the elementary school level and to advocate for a more thoughtful approach to determining class sizes. The district is proposing to cut 2 class sections at Duffy for the fall of 2024. Duffy already has the highest class size average in the district, and this only inflates our high class size average to 22.2 students per class. In 1st grade, we are projected to have 22 students per class, which will be 47% more students, or 7 students more per classroom than several other 1st grade classrooms in the district, who will have 15 students per class. Similarly, for 4th grade, Duffy will have 40% more students per classroom than another school in the district. The disproportionately large class sizes at Duffy are illustrated in the bar graph that I handed out. This bar graph shows the distribution of class sizes for Duffy in red and the distribution of class sizes for the rest of the district in blue. Duffy's data is skewed to the right, showing larger class sizes. Duffy's lowest class size is 19 students per class, and nearly half of our class sections are 22 students per class. Clearly, there is inequity across the district. When looking into the data and current guidelines used to create enrollment numbers, we found some alarming findings. That the current guidelines are inherently biased and promote smaller class sizes for smaller schools and larger class sizes for large schools. This is clearly illustrated in the table that is on the reverse side of the handout. The table shows how class size will vary under the current guidelines as the size of a grade increases. As grade size increases, it becomes more and more difficult for the class size to be smaller. For instance, a grade size of 73 students will have 4 sections of 18 to 19 students in grades K to 3 that can always be conflated to 3 sections with class sizes of 24 to 25 students in grades 4 to 5 because there's simply more room to distribute students. At a smaller school, a grade might have 54 students total with 3 sections of 18 students, leaving no room to conflate classes. so they end up with continually higher odds of keeping smaller class sizes. At a school like Duffy, where we have around 500 students and the typical size of other elementary schools in our district at around 320 students, it makes small class sizes nearly impossible at our larger school. Class size matters and lends to greater academic achievement for all socioeconomic backgrounds, lowers the achievement gap, and improves teacher satisfaction. And I urge you to take a more thoughtful approach to determining class sizes. It's only fair for our teachers and students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Catherine Zukis.
Hello, my name is Catherine Zukis. I live at Footpath Lane. I'm writing on behalf of Harper and Ford Zukis, second and third graders at Duffy Elementary School. It is my truest belief that as a society, our only path forward is through quality education. I find the class sizes at Duffy to be inequitable within the state and decisions to increase class sizes irresponsible. This school year, my son Ford was one of 22 students in a second grade classroom. While his teacher was exceptional, she was still spread thin. He did not have as much regular conferencing time as he has past years because the class size is so big. He is fortunate to have naturally strong math skills, but I am left trying to strengthen his reading and writing and fill in anywhere that I see he is lacking. I think of other students who don't have that same support level at home. Who is filling in the gaps for them? Furthermore, I worry that West Hartford will lose its amazing teachers due to burnout. Surrounding towns have class size limits much lower. In Connecticut, the average class size in primary grades is 19.4. I also have the unique perspective of being an elementary school teacher from an exceptional school district in the same DRG. I do not understand why West Hartford is considering cutting teaching positions. Research shows that the ideal class size is 18. My school district has used professional development time to closely look at class size and the correlation to student success. It is not lost on us that we, as educators, have the ability to make an impact and provide personalized instruction with our ideal class sizes. As teachers, we assess our students, use that information to tailor our instruction, and meet our students' specific needs. It is undeniable that learning and growth happens both academically and socially through personalized instruction and personal connections made between students and their teachers. In my own classroom, I have 18 students. I have built a relationship with each and every student. Off the top of my head, I could tell you each student's book level, their overall health on the Acadience reading assessments, their personalized reading goals, and areas I'm focusing on in math with them. I have such a deep understanding of each student because I have the gift of an appropriate class size. And I conference with each student a minimum of once a week. As a teacher, I understand that adding 4 to 6 students to a class makes it nearly impossible to meet each student every week for a 10 to 15 minute reading conference and still deliver regular instruction. The thought of my daughter's class size going to 24 to 25 students when she enters 4th grade is appalling. My husband and I researched school districts and specifically chose West Hartford for the quality of education. We thought that class sizes
Excuse me, I'm sorry, your time is, you can finish your sentence, please.
Okay. If class sizes are determined by an existing policy, can we please consider revising that document as times have evolved and so have our students' needs?
Thank you. Next, we have Gabriella, last initial N.
Hello, my name is Gabriella and I live on Oakwood Avenue, West Hartford. I'm here to advocate for the positions that are being cut due to the new budget cut proposal. West Hartford has been my home for many years, and as a resident, I would love to believe that I'm safe and welcome here. When it comes down to filling out any forms such as school forms and doctor's forms, social workers are there to assist the English-speaking community. But according to West Hartford 2021 Equity Profile, it was stated that 17% of West Hartford residents were born in another country, which means that many of our children who were born and raised here grew up to fill out taxes forms, doctor's forms, and school forms without even understanding what they meant. Now, we do have the privilege to have such an important position occupied by an amazing Latina woman who helps represent our community. What of those non-English speaking parents who need help? Or what about those kids who were born here but cannot speak English? Or those teachers who need to communicate with the parents and students back in? We have someone who helps them every day, and taking this assistance from us would impact our kids who wouldn't be able to get the help they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jose, last initial M.
Olá, meu nome é José Moreira, sou morador de West Hartford, tenho 2 crianças nas escolas de West, Yasmin e Samuel. Estou aqui para defender a população brasileira e acrescentar a importância da Amanda, desculpa aí, acrescentar a importância da Amanda à comunidade brasileira, a qual ela tem dado tanto amor e tanto carinho. Sei que muitos pais queriam estar aqui nesse momento, mas infelizmente não conseguiram chegar aqui devido ao trabalho. Nós, imigrantes, temos que trabalhar para cuidar da nossa família. Eu louvo a Deus e agradeço a presença da Amanda nas escolas e os demais professores. Eu vejo isso dentro da minha casa, através dos meus filhos, que sobressaiu muito bem nesse período que está na escola de West Hartford, e com a direção da Amanda, apoiando a comunidade brasileira, eu posso ver vários rostos brasileiros aqui, que eu acho que está sendo bem representado pela minha emoção neste momento. Sei que, às vezes, isso não adianta muita coisa, a emoção de um ser humano. Mas eu acho que esse país é um país de oportunidade e é um país de liberdade. Eu agradeço a vocês por ter me dado este direito de defender o direito da minha família, o direito dos meus filhos de crescer e ser alguém nesse país. Esses brasileiros que estão aqui presentes não é em prol totalmente da Amanda, mas eles veio correr atrás e defender o direito que os filhos deles possam crescer e ser alguém nesse país. Talvez um dia eu não vou ver, mas um filho meu pode ter um estudo que eu não tenho. E pode estar sentado numa cadeira que eu nunca sentei. Todos aqui presentes têm uma história para contar. E eu tenho uma grande história. Desde quando eu cheguei aqui nesse país, a Amanda me apoiou com todas as forças. A minha casa entrou água e ela sempre esteve presente ali. O meu filho nasceu, ela sempre esteve presente, me apoiando. Doou o bebê conforto através da informação dela, a polícia de West Hartford me abençoou com o bebê conforto. A Amanda tem cuidado da comunidade brasileira. Nós somos uma comunidade que é menos favorecida financeiramente. Quando chega o final de ano, no mês de dezembro, eu posso ver a alegria no rosto dos meus filhos e a alegria no rosto das outras crianças.
Excuse me, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ok. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Oh, oh. Okay. Thank you. Gracias. Next, we have Paulo da Silva.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry the last speech already made me cry. I live in West Hartford for over 20 years. I have two kids. They go to Charter Walk School. They've been there since pre-K. I want to thank all the professionals that work there, all the all the professionals that go every day and help our kids to be successful in life. The first thing I did is trying to recently had a chance to invest, buy my first house, and I focus on West Hartford because it's a place that I dream to be. It's a place that I dream that my kids go to this school because it's ranked as one of the best school in Connecticut. And we believe that it will continue to be like that. I understand that the pay cuts and job positions sometimes are in play that we all wanted to focus on pay cut, but I think this is really bad for our community. It's a bad for a place that we dream and invest on, and for our family to be somebody important in their lives. And we continue to believe that these pay cuts will be structured by the powerful people that are able to help all the communities, that we continue to give to our kids the dream that we were never able to achieve. I want to thank you, Amanda, for all the support for that she gave me. My daughter is in Chattawalk School for over 6 years. She's been there since pre-K. She had been in all the programs that a school offer for her, and she's been learning a lot. And lately, last year, I discovered that she was struggling a little bit with her learning. And I went to the school and I asked them what would they be able to do, because I was doing the best I could, and I was not able to help her the way I want to. And I was introduced to Amanda, and she was able to explain about the programs of learning disability and guide me, introduce me to the right people. Today, she's having that help. I see a lot of improvement that she's been achieved in the past year to what she's doing right now. And I believe that every single position there is important. Every single position there has a meaning. That's why West Hartford is one of the best schools in the district. Is one of the best schools that everybody wants to buy house, invest in here, and be here. I think we will get through this. It's a tough time, but there is always a way around when we can focus on investing in our future. I think every single position is important for our future in West Hartford. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Sandra, last initial F.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Felicissimo. I reside in Newington. I'm an ESOL teacher at Smith STEM Elementary School, and I'm here to express my strong support for retaining the position of the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator.
As an ESOL teacher, I have had the privilege of working closely with our current coordinator, Amanda Goller, and have witnessed firsthand the invaluable support that she provides to our diverse families. Amanda is much more than a translator. She is often the first point of contact for families entering our school system, particularly those that do not speak English fluently. Her knowledge of the school system and her ability to navigate its complexities are instrumental in ensuring that these families feel welcomed and supported. From assisting with enrollment procedures to providing guidance on accessing essential services such as healthcare and transportation, Amanda plays a vital role in helping families feel a sense of belonging in our community. Furthermore, Amanda's contributions extend beyond the individual's family support. She has been instrumental in organizing events such as Multicultural Night, which celebrate the diversity of our school community, as well as informational sessions for parents on topics ranging from school attendance to health education. Her efforts to collaborate with external partners, such as the West Hartford Police Department, also have resulted in valuable initiatives such as car seat distribution events. I understand that budgetary constraints pose significant challenges, but I urge you to reconsider the proposed reduction of Amanda's hours. Cutting her position would severely impact our ability to effectively support our diverse families and could potentially undermine the sense of inclusivity and equity that we strive to uphold. In closing, I ask you to consider the question, who will step in to fulfill the vital role that Amanda currently plays in our school community? The need for dedicated family and community engagement support will not diminish if her position is eliminated. I strongly believe that retaining Amanda's full-time position is essential to ensuring that all families in West Hartford receive the support and resources that they need and deserve to thrive. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Next, we have Vivian Rinaldi.
Hello. Oi. Buenas noches. I'm here to express my concern related to the suggestion for the position family engagement coordinator. I think it's going to be a really difficult time for families, especially the families in SOL. We talking about in the first presentation, talk about that represent 20% of the students, 80% of students is in English learning. So we talk about 30% of increasing how we're gonna take it off a position in ESOL. And when we talk about those families, we need to remember they come from a different system. So that means somebody really needs to assist them to be critical to understand how that's going to play. If a person speaks English, that's easy. You're going to be able at least to go by yourself and learn and ask a specific question. For a person who comes from a different country, we talk about different system. We talk about different culture. And that's a sensitivity point. Because when we talk about families, we need to understand that families need to connect with healthcare. And we talk about families sometimes undocumented. We talk about families with limited resources. And who are going to be impacted by this decision in specific? We talk about an area in our town, West Hartford, is considered low income. They are the most ones who are going to suffer the impact. So Charter Oak, Smith area, those ones who are going to be suffering the most impact. And at the same time, what is the engagement? So please take a look at the engagement, how the SOL families is being engaged through having a position like that. As a bilingual staff, but also as a bilingual person in the community, we don't have the resource to all translate. People who are here not able to speak English, they're not understand. You have a little understand when the other gentleman came here and speak Portuguese. If you don't have the translation, you don't know what they are talking. So this is a sense for the person who don't speak English all the time. How realistic it is for us relying on a kid to translate for families important information. That's the reality of this community. And we need to be fair. We are going backwards. We talk about in a world where diversity, culture, it matters. And us as a community, we claim so much about the diversity. And we are taking this position out. Turn to this position hourly is not gonna really make a difference for the families. We really need to think about those topics, not just read the job description, are different two positions Claire mentioned in the meeting, the 13, and for me, show how the board is not really clear about what is the difference between these positions. It's not the same job, it's not the same support, it's different. Families really need more extra step,
And I understand when we talk about budget and cutting, I understand that, but we need to be realistic and think about who is gonna suffer the most impact of this cutting. It's not right we put it on the families who are already vulnerable in our community. So please take the time to really understand what each individual do in each position and now how we're gonna plan to address that. We're gonna make more available translation for all the needs. Thank you so much.
Before you go, pardon, if you can just please restate your name and town of residence,
I'm
please.
sorry, my name is Viviane Rinaldi. I live in West Hartford, Bentwood Road.
Thank you. Next, we have Amanda G, last initial G. And before you begin, Amanda, I want to say, love beautiful signs, but we're respectfully asking, please. Thank you so much. Thank you.
May I translate that?
Pardon me?
May I translate that?
Yes.
Just in case. Ela está pedindo que eles gostam muito dos sinais, mas, por favor, para a gente manter todos abaixados. Good evening. My name is Amanda Goller. I am the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator at Smith and Charter Oak, and also a West Hartford resident. I have worked for the district for the past 7 years, primarily with immigrant families. As an immigrant myself, I share a deep understanding of their journey and the challenge they face. This personal connection allows me to emphasize with their struggles and advocate for their needs. I have had the privilege of working with families from diverse countries, cultures, and backgrounds. Some are fluent in English, others are not, but they get to me looking for something other than an interpreter. They yearn for a safe connection. Once we created that trusting relationship and established that connection, everything changes. Families and students feel represented, heard, and most importantly, safe. But why do we need someone to just sit next to families while they all fill up paperwork? Why do we need someone to help them with registration? Why can't they make their own doctor's appointments? The answers to these questions are far more complex than we think. Navigating, understanding, and getting used to our complex and confusing system isn't easy. Moving to another country isn't easy. Imagine yourself living in a foreign country where nobody speaks English. A simple school registration process that would take you 1 hour to complete turning those days because they can't understand your child's medical records or school transcripts. When you finally get through that process, your child gets sick and you need to see a doctor. But wait a minute, how do you make a doctor appointment if you don't speak the language? You don't have health insurance, and you don't have a social security number. Well, we probably think this wouldn't happen because we would not move to another country or put ourselves in that position. So I'll ask just one more question. What if we were in the middle of a war and we had no other choice but to pack everything and move? This is the reality of many of our immigrant families. Many of our families do not have access to a car, a cell phone, and they also face food insecurity. That drastically impacts students' lives and consequentially their education. This is clearly an equity issue, and that's why the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator position is so crucial. The number and data show that ESOL students and immigrant families represent a significant proportion of our district. School social workers, psychologists, teachers, and secretaries can only take so many responsibilities. We understand that it's hard to keep everything within our limited budget, but please consider keeping this full position, and let's continue to give the chance and a voice for all the community to speak up and share their needs with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Cremilda Oliveira.
Hi, my name is Carmelda Oliveira. I am a licensed marriage family therapist, and I have about over 10 years of experience working with immigrants in Connecticut. I am also a resident of West Hartford for almost 30 years. I am referring directly to Amanda because she is in the position of Family and Community Engagement Coordinator. This job requires cultural competence, unique skills, and knowledge which she has acquired and built over many years of serving the district. Amanda has been a vital bridge between the school and the medical and mental health providers. Amanda has educated many of my patients about the importance of attending schools regularly in the US and monitor their attendance. She has helped expedite some of my referrals for the students to have precise diagnosis to help with the PPT meetings. She has helped me to contact doctors and psychologists, neuropsychologists, and this has avoided many. This has avoided more expenses for the Board of Education with assessments and evaluations. Many immigrants do not have the same access to resources as American citizens naturally have. Immigrants who just arrive in the U.S. Cannot prove residency when they're living with relatives. Many do not have the passports to prove nationalities. Many do not have health records when they want to try to register the kids for school. So imagine the anxiety level for the parents who do not speak English, who do not have all these resources, and the fear of being reported for educational neglect. So I can only imagine how many students have access to education today in our district because of the countless phone calls, video calls, emails, interviews, and appointments Amanda has attended with these families in the past 7 years. Imagine how many suicides we have prevented in our school district throughout these past 7 years just by having Amanda connect the families with mental health providers. God forbid this happens, but if we hear about a student who died of suicide and the students decide, and the students and the teacher have to deal with the empty desk on the following day, I would like you to ask yourself the following: what have I done to prevent this tragedy in our district? And how did cutting Amanda's position have contributed to this tragedy in our school? This is not just the social service department obligation, it's also the school, the educational system. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Jasmine Morera, and again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing.
Good evening. My name is Yasmin Lopes. I'm a 7th grade student at KP. I'm here today to talk about the importance of role of your family and community engagement coordinator, Amanda Goller. I first met Amanda when my family moved here from Brazil 3 years ago. My parents were completely lost. I went to the town hall with them to talk about the registration, and I was trying to help my parents, but I didn't speak English at the time. I remember going to 3 different departments, and nobody can understand us. It was a very scary experience, and I thought I would not be able to go to school. Me and my mom start crying, fearing that we're not going to be able to understand how things work in here. And then one of the town works wrote Amanda's name and cell phone number off a piece of paper and gave to us. We went back to the car, and my mom called Amanda. She answered the phone and start talking to us in Portuguese. Our tears of fear become tears of hope and joy. Amanda helped my parents with the whole registration process of me and my little brother. She also helped us with transportation, school lunch, and everything else. Amanda became my family's safe point of connection, and she helped my parents understand how school works, what kind of service were available in the town, and what we need to be successful in school. I go to Saturday Academy at KP every Saturday. Amanda has been running this program for years. She brings us breakfast every week, and she not only helps us complete our assessment, but she also teaches us how to be good students. She teaches us the more important, how to keep working hard so we can complete our dreams. A couple of months ago, our apartment complex got flooded, and we were very scary. I called 911 and asked for help. We also called Amanda, and she immediately went to the social service looking for help. She helped and supported all the families in need from the complex. A total of 12 families, not only families that spoke Portuguese, but also families that spoke other languages. She helped was, well, the translation to a hotel and make sure bring us food. This is just a few examples why we need Amanda in her current position. The change that she makes on our community and the impact that she has in education is very valuable. Please don't take that from us. We, our family, need her, our community need her, and we need her. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Marianne, last initial T.
Hello, I'm Mariani Pedro-Tholheimer. I live in Nesbitt Avenue. I'm from Brazil. This is why I want Amanda to stay at Smith STEM School. I want Amanda to stay because she helps the kids and moms that are Brazilian. Amanda is a very special person for the students, for the moms, for the school, and for our Brazilian community. Please think more about me and my friends because Amanda is very important for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mary Ellen Doyle.
Thank you. My name is Mary Ellen Doyle, and I live in West Hartford. And I am a parent of 3 students at Duffy School, currently in grades 4, 2, and K. I also serve on the board of the Children Health and Development Institute, CHDI. Since our family joined the Duffy community in 2019, the student body has grown to 504 students. We are the largest elementary school in the district and have experienced tremendous growth in a short time. Our school benefits from an amazing and capable staff that care about our children and their education. I am concerned that the students of Duffy are no longer receiving the same quality of individualized attention that the other West Hartford elementary schools are able to provide due to continuous increase in class size. I see from the proposed budget that we will continue to have among the largest classrooms in the district. This comes at a time when elementary school students rebounding from COVID require personalized attention more than ever. I am privileged to have been able to spend time within Duffy throughout the school year, both as a room parent and through volunteer opportunities. Being in the school before winter break, I was surprised to see firsthand that the current first grade classrooms of 22 children are crowded, extremely warm due to an inefficient HVAC, and I noticed that the entire class no longer fits comfortably on the rug for morning meeting, which is such an important time for students to develop a sense of community and belonging. During classroom activities, the space feels tight. During transition times, the larger classrooms took longer to mobilize, leaving our educators to spend much more time on classroom management and safety. A teacher shared with me that they went from helping each of their students to having to move to a check everything off the list approach. In contrast, our kindergarten classrooms with an average of 17 children are still bursting with activity, but the environment is calmer. Transitions are smoother and take less time. Teachers seem more able to respond to students individually without derailing an entire lesson. I think about these crowded classrooms a lot, especially as our school prepares for some disruption during the next school year as we update the HVAC. I understand our counselor funding also ends after this school year. Our district will lose access to school counselors who provide meaningful support to students and teachers. As a parent of a child who loves their time with Miss Kylie, I worry about them moving into a larger classroom where our educators will be stretched further and simultaneously lose the behavioral support that so many students count on. Like the many concerned parents before me, I encourage you to reduce class sizes at Duffy School and consider keeping our counselors. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Andrea DeMaria.
Good evening. My name is Andrea DeMaria. I live on Mountain Terrace Road. I'm here to also reiterate the importance of smaller class sizes and how much we can see the impacts it has on our students and teachers. I also want to point out that most of those of us in green in the audience are here to support Duffy in this issue. As the largest elementary school where our principal, curriculum specialist, reading specialist, and interventionist, tutors, and counselors are already stretched thin to meet the needs of over 500 students, it is critical that Duffy preserves small learning communities for its learners to feel safe and successful. It is only fair for our teachers that class sizes are equitable. To have class sizes in the district that are sometimes 40 or 50% larger at Duffy than any other school is just isn't right. And it's really not fair to our amazing, hardworking teachers and staff. They are truly a gift, and we want to protect the positive learning community they provide to our kids every day. Thank you for reconsidering these class size discrepancies. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeff Kivlin, last initial K.
My name is Jeff Kivlin, reside on Stoner Drive, have a 6-year-old in kindergarten at Duffy. Came here tonight to talk about the class sizes at Duffy, which you've heard a lot about already. It's not the only thing, though. I sat here about a month and a half ago at another meeting here, and it was about DEI. And I'm dumbfounded to find out after all that 2-hour conversation and how happy everybody was in the room about what you're doing, that you're eliminating Amanda's position. That just dumbfounds me. Also, your number one job as a board is to provide tools and resources for the best way for our children to learn. Is this budget the best we can do for the town of West Hartford? I challenge you to scrap it, add money to it. Everybody in this room is okay with paying a little bit more or challenging the town council to make the tough decision. Your job is actually easy. Just ask for more money. Save the positions, save the counselors, save the teachers, add more teachers. It's why we all chose to raise our families in West Hartford. Challenge the town council. Make them make the decision whether they redesign parking in West Hartford Center for the 5th time in a decade. Seriously. Or do we need more bike lanes? Or would we rather have better schools? Our schools are crumbling. Our teachers are being slashed. They're taxed beyond belief with these class sizes. Our children are not okay with what they just went through with COVID. The mental health is a crisis, and you're going to eliminate all the counselors at the elementary schools. That's ridiculous. I cannot believe that's actually happening. Ask for more money. Make them choose. Do we need a $66 million community center, or do we need more teachers, more counselors, better schools? I think everybody in this room, in this town, with a family, knows the choice is obvious. Make them make the choice. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all who I have signed up on the list. However, do you want to extend an invite to anyone in the audience who would like to make a public comment? Again, please state your name and town of residence.
My name is Heather Bershino. I reside on Dermott Lane in West Hartford, and I'm speaking tonight in support of the 7 elementary school counselors who will not be returning to the West Hartford Public Schools if this proposed budget is passed. I could tell you these elementary counselors provided meaningful lessons to support our curriculum, totaling 980 lessons across the district based on individual and class needs. I could tell you these counselors service over 300 students in small groups, but these numbers would only tell you what these professionals were given to as duties that they've carried out exceptionally, according to the funding that was provided. What those numbers don't tell you is why these people are still needed. According to the CDC, anxiety and depression have increased significantly over the years. Rates of ever having been diagnosed with anxiety or depression among children aged 6 through 17 have been on the increase. Once schools reopened, according to the American Psychological Association in 2023, the biggest challenge facing mental health care providers right now is the shortage of providers trained to meet the mounting needs of children and adolescents. This is the area in which our counselors have been invaluable in serving as trusted adults when students experience crisis. Across grade levels in SEL, we make it clear that students need trusted adults. Teachers are clearly such adults, but when crises arise like family emergencies or safety issues in class, additional support is crucial. I don't have the time in these 3 minutes to communicate how important it is for these students of West Hartford to have these counselors by their side. A check-in with a student can change their whole day and their experience as a learner. In response to the crisis that can happen in a classroom, counselors have worked alongside leadership, teachers, parents, children, and pupil service teams to ensure that plans are created and put in place to keep all students safe, to help students get the help they need, and to take steps towards restoration. I've seen firsthand the impact of a dedicated student counselor, Justine Kiley. I have seen the way that her touch points throughout the day to scheduled check-ins and sessions have made the world of difference to my students, meeting their needs in a way that teachers can't. They don't have the capacity to. In addition, these counselors respond to calls on walkie-talkies when students are dysregulated, offering support that benefits both individuals and the entire class that they're part of. In addition to these duties, our school counselors also run tiered intervention groups based on needs like emotional regulation, impulse control, and growth mindset. These are critical needs for student success, as identified by the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, otherwise known as CASEL. In fact, on our district website, when you hover over the vision of the graduate, you see that it's aligned with the CASEL frameworks for social and emotional learning. This work begins at the earliest levels. 3 times a year, teachers administer the DESA, which assess social and emotional competencies. In the same way that students benefit from support in tiered literacy and math programs to close the achievement gaps, our elementary counselors have also been absolutely essential in helping students to close these gaps and to grow in their competencies.
Excuse me, pardon me. If you can finish your sentence, please. Thank you.
I urge you to find a way to preserve the elementary counselors, as we cannot put a price on our students' social and emotional well-being, nor can we do that to our teachers who recognize this value.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to? Are you heading there? All right.
Good night. My name is Isaio Carlos, and I'm a 6th grade student at King Philip Middle School, and I'm a former Smith student. I'm here today to talk about how our family and community coordinator, Amanda Goller, helped me, my family, and our community. Amanda has helped my family in many the most important one was with my brother. Yes, Harry. My brother was really struggling. Amanda worked with my parents and help them get health and connect them to a doctor. My brother was diagnosed with a severe hearing loss, and Amanda helped him get hearing aids and everything he needed to better access with his education. My parents didn't feel comfortable coming to the school because they don't speak English. Amanda explained to them the importance of being part of the school to follow our progress. I see Amanda translate for my parents during conference, and I always feel emotional the way she translates and explain things to my parents. It's very unique and special. She makes us feel part of the community and happy here. What Amanda does for my family and many others during the holiday seasons and also on the daily basis will forever be in my heart. Many students, including myself, are inspired by Amanda and her work. In fact, I want to be like her when I grow up. Please don't take that away from us.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Maggie Beatty Roberts, and I'm a West Hartford resident and Smith STEM parent of a second grader and fourth grader. In reviewing the proposed budget, I've learned of the elimination of the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator position that is shared by Smith STEM and Charter Oak. I respectfully ask you to advocate for the reprioritization of this position in the current budget proposal so that we as a district do not undermine equitable access to essential services for our town's most vulnerable students. 1 in 5 students and their families at Smith STEM is an English or multilingual learner. Smith STEM has the highest percentage of English learners, multilingual learners, of all the elementary schools in West Hartford. There are 13.8% more English and multilingual learners enrolled at Smith STEM than the total enrolled English multilingual learners district-wide. At Smith STEM, the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator serves as a bridge between our community and essential resources, ensuring that every child has access to the support they need to thrive academically and personally. This position critically helps our most disadvantaged families get registered for school, apply for health insurance, and find community doctors and housing. The person in this position attends doctor's appointments with families and is essential to the success of the backpack program that provides food over the weekend to students experiencing food insecurity at home. She is fluent in Portuguese and helps our office staff immensely with her ability to connect with families in their language and translates for them when necessary. In doing so, she is ensuring that Smith STEM can support families the way that they deserve to be supported, as outlined in the Connecticut State Department of Education Parent Bill of Rights for English learners, due to be implemented July 1st, 2024. West Hartford School District is known for respecting and educating the whole child. This position is critical for the health, well-being, and education of West Hartford children and their families. The stronger and more connected our families are to our town and our school system, the stronger we are as a whole. I ask you to advocate for this position and ask West Hartford educational leadership to reprioritize this position in the 2024-25 budget proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hello, good evening. My name is Jaylene Parker. I live in West Hartford, Westfall Street. Since we moved here around 6 years ago, we didn't know much about the system and how it worked. I could barely speak English, and we found our family found ourselves in didn't know where to go. My brother, he had some difficult time since he moved from Brazil. The reason we moved from Brazil was because my family was suffering some kind of family issue, and it led to a little bit of depression and anxiety. My brother has hearing loss. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. He has problem with hearing loss. So when we got here, we not just didn't really know where to go for school, but we didn't know how to get help to have a affordable health care or something like that that could help us. Working for us wasn't the problem. We were willing to do anything we could. We just didn't have enough information. When we met her, it was really helpful because we need to get his vaccines updated and he need hearing aids and stuff like that because those things change all the time. And they are like over $5,000 it's really expensive for anybody to maintain a cost like that. So she didn't just help us to fill out paperwork for school. She helped us to find clinics that were more affordable, place things for him to do outside of time, outside of class. Like in West Hartford, you guys have a lot of activities that kids these days can go, which really helps for us to know. Because unfortunately here, as an immigrant, you have to work over hours. So it's important when you see that your kid is going to a sport after school or is going to the library and doing things in the community that you know they are safe, they're not out in the street. Especially the after hours school, they have the programs they have. So I really wanna thank you her for everything she's done for my family. Every little help that she did, it was really important. Today, thank God I can speak a little bit better and help my parents and my brother. But before that, we didn't know how we would do. She provided us so much help, and not just me, but with her around, I see so many friends of mine willing to pay double what they used to pay living in other towns for rent, just so they could have her help and assist them. Thank you so much. Please hear us.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Roger Nascimento. I am resident of West Hartford, and I am a business owner on the town as well. I would like to advocate in the cause of the help we having from our teacher here, or Amanda, who had helped our community. It's very, we have relief when we feel that we have somebody on the school that can help our kids that are learning English. We have moments where they get stressful and they can't speak the language well to manifest what they're going through. And her position there gives us the relief that there is somebody there that can make that connection with that kid and help that kid in the moment of need. Because it is stressful for you to move from one country to another where you don't speak the language. It was mentioned here for 2 times, and I want to bring again the idea of a bridge. A couple days ago, we lost a bridge on this country that's gonna bring a lot of headaches, and we're gonna lose a lot of money with that. Now we have a chance to keep a bridge that's gonna help the community, or take a bridge out that's gonna bring a lot of stress for the kids in the school. So please consider our kids and the position that she takes in the school to help everybody on that community. Because when one kid is stressed in the class, it's not just that kid. All the kids are also stressed. And that position is needed to help the community and the kids that are the future of this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I'll ask again. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening, Board of Education. My name is Heather Sansone. I live in West Hartford on Royal Oak Drive. I actually had no potential to speak this evening. I feel really moved by everything I've heard this evening, and I thank you for the job that you have to do, because I know this job is not easy, and I actually wouldn't want it, honestly. But I feel like as educators, which I would imagine is how you got to the position that you are, that you can't possibly feel right about the things that are needing to be done, but doing them because they have to be. And I'm asking that because we've put you here to represent us and what's important to our community, that you consider fighting back and saying to our town council and whoever needs to hear it, because it's evident that ESSER provided things that we've always needed and should still have. And I wish that it would be possible for you to speak up to the people that make the decisions above this and just say, please, this isn't going to work. We need more. We've got to find a way to keep these things that are clearly so vital to so many people in this community. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I'll ask again. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? One last time. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, we're going to close on our public hearing. Want to thank you all so very much for coming out, for speaking, for sharing your thoughts, and want to certainly also express a big appreciation to the young folks that are here. It's really important to see you exercise and use your voice. So thank you all so very much. We're going to take a brief pause before we transition to our workshop number 2. Thank you all again. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your patience, and we will resume and continue. And now we are officially continuing rather, the discussion with workshop number 2. So we know we came together a couple of weeks ago, and thank you so much for sharing in more granular details the budget. And so here we are to continue that, plus receive questions we may have. But first, we'll see if our superintendent has anything to share before we continue.
So I did want to offer, I have a comment, but I wanted to offer a quick reminder to our public if they are listening, just a reminder that this coming Tuesday, April the 2nd, there is no school on Tuesday, April the 2nd. I know that's been out in newsletters and such, and that's due to the primary elections and the use of the schools for that purpose. We voted on that a while back, so I just wanted to make that announcement quickly. Relative to this, again, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to respond to questions, certainly respond to the public. Very grateful for the team to be here. And I'll just open by saying truly inspirational to see the engagement of our community. I do believe it's reflective of the value that the community places on education, and it's undoubtedly a testament to the work of our teachers and all of the support staff in everything that they do on a daily basis. And it was nothing short of inspirational to hear the support of our schools as they talked. So with that, I want to turn it back to the board. I want to thank the team for making themselves available and to be such a dramatic support to putting together the budget and really all the operations of our school at the executive level. And just hope we can answer anything that is a question for the board as you take on this monumental responsibility to put forward a budget to our town council.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, monumental, but an honor nonetheless. And we thank you so much for providing us the information to do just that. So teammates, this is our time. We've had an opportunity to review and to ask questions, but we want to have this be an open format of asking questions and gaining more insight. So what questions are there? Okay, we'll go down. We'll start with
defer to the vice chair, but
Jason. Go ahead. We'll go Jason first. All right.
I was just so we had. I think we've been using a term maybe interchangeably, and I just like kind of a clarification for the record. So we have a position, I believe, at the district level of engagement coordinator. And then the position that we had a lot of testimony on, I believe I've often heard to as the home liaison. So if someone could just maybe, for the record, get some clarification on that.
Certainly. I'll, for the purposes, did some more research following that, and there does appear to be some duplication in naming for two separate jobs, two distinct jobs. So a position that you heard a lot of testimony about tonight was a shared position that was created 2 years ago. It's shared between Charter Oak and Smith, and it's reflective of a position that was previously supported through a different grant at the time many years ago, and that services as a home to school liaison. And I think you generally got a good sense of the responsibilities of that position from the testimony that you heard tonight. There's also a position that is in that home to school liaison position that you heard about, Charter Oak and Smith, Family Engagement Coordinator. That position has been in its recent form, has been in existence for the last 2 years and has been supported by our ESSER budget, or by our ESSER funds. And it was brought forward for exactly the kinds of reasons that you heard, that we anticipated coming out of the pandemic there would be the need. There's always the need to be able to try to provide support for those families. We'd previously done so on a more part-time basis through grant funding, through hourly wages, and we knew there would be more, a greater volume of need coming out of the pandemic, and so we did put it into the ESSER budget at that time. The other position, Family Engagement Coordinator, is a position that's been in existence in the Equity Office for the last 3 years. And that is something that was in the general fund. It was something that I believe at the time Superintendent Moore brought forward as he expanded the impact and outreach of that office. And then during there were previously, as was mentioned in the budget, there were previously 2 full-time positions other than the Director of Equity Advancement. There was the Family and Community Engagement position, which does a lot of outreach related to the work of our equity office, but not on, I wouldn't say as much on that personalized level that you heard about tonight, more so that is working and supporting our One Community group, supporting the advancement of our equity mission, and helping to build partnerships across the entirety of the district. There was previously also a social work position that came into being during the pandemic, and that position was targeted specifically to be a liaison position between our school social workers and our town social workers. And this was during a period of time when the schools, as well as the town, we were being inundated with requests for support of family. You'll recall that schools had gone entirely online. We were getting calls from families who did not necessarily have home internet, so they were at a disadvantage. We were receiving a lot of calls about food insecurity across the entire district, folks who had participated in the free and reduced lunch program, and now schools were not in session. So that position came into being based out of need, really, of our, the combination of, our social services department, I think, kind of being overwhelmed at the time, and a number of folks just kind of flocking to the schools because that was where they had been receiving those services. Very separate from kind of the social work positions that our clinicians in the schools provide that relate specifically to an individualized educational program. And so that social work position, coming out of the pandemic, after the last couple of years, we said those needs really died down. Where folks needed the help and the support, we were able to, we've been able to sort of re-engage, whether it be on the social services side with our town support, or whether it be something that is a need that kind of gets serviced through the school. We were back closer to our regular levels. So we did reduce that social worker position from the equity office within this budget. It was unfilled, I believe, in the last budget, but we are retaining the other position of Family and Community Engagement Coordinator under the direction of our Director of Equity Advancement. So I hope that distinguishes the 2 positions. One's much more hands-on at those 2 schools and direct service to students. The other position is more global with its reach across the whole district, but
what is the title of the position at Smith and Charter Oak? What is on a business card if she would have one?
So I did, after I had sent the clarification, went and looked up some records, and they were both being maintained under the same title, which was a surprise to me. My understanding, this other position had previously existed. We had always referred to it as the home to school liaison because much more specific and much more sort of transparent in terms of the expectations, and I think you heard about that tonight. But that is why, as folks are looking at it, as the community is looking at it, and they're seeing the duplication of the name, that is why that came into question. But I think that was just perhaps, something of a title management issue that happened when the position came on, that wasn't necessarily, I don't think it impacts anything other than some potential confusion as folks were talking about the budget.
And then as a follow-up, if we were to add the home to school liaison as part of the budget, what would that cost be?
Liz has that number.
Hi, thank you very much. We have been looking, I don't have a direct answer for you, but I have a different answer. We had previously funded. Okay. Well, I'm not going to say it depends, but I can say that we have looked at the position through grant funding in the past, and we are continue to look at what funds we have available in Title III and possibly the immigrant grant and other grants to build the position. I can't say for sure what we, all the funds we have available, but that's where we're looking right now, so we can maintain some of these services, although at not at the current level.
As a follow-on to that, there's been an issue with interpretation for our families for years. And what positions are there within social services that support this? And what does a family do with an infant or a family without children or elderly people who don't know the language and need interpretation and support for doctors and that? I mean, where in the town do they get support?
So I don't know that I'll answer on behalf of the town. I'll certainly share that relative to translation services at the school. That is a service that we provide or make available. We do so for planning and placement teams, PPTs. We do so for parent conferences. It comes in one of two directions. Generally, it comes from direct knowledge once a relationship is established with a family and that we know of the need for that support. And then initially, it would obviously come from a request or from an understanding that gets developed about a support that might be needed. Those types of services are very, happen very much in and around specific school type events. And then when we do events such as a kindergarten registration or something like that, we're trying to ensure that we have them at those pivotal moments. Recognizing that's, certainly some difference from some of the more personalized connection that you're able to hear. On the town side, I'm not as fluent with that, the interworkings of the social services department, but relative to how the translation services themselves work and the intersection with that, I'm certain that there's an avenue, but I would need to research, and I can certainly get that answer and follow up with you.
Jason, you all set?
I don't know how this typically works. We usually stay on a topic.
Yeah, we can.
Well, if it's on the same topic, yes. But if not, then we'll pass. Okay, all right. Shannon.
Yeah, I guess in terms of the testimony that was provided and even doing some research beforehand and looking at how high the English learner population is specifically at Smith, it sounds like this need is very clear, and I'd be interested in more data about the specific breakdown of the languages at Smith and other schools and Charter Oak specifically, but also it just sounds like this is a role that is in the spirit more of the family and community engagement role and I know one of the themes of this budget was ROI, and just from again, it's a sample size, but it's clear that the return on investment in this position has been very significant, and so I'd be very interested in seeing what it would take to return it back to the budget.
Thank you, and we can certainly follow up with the specific languages and percentages at the whole district, at any particular school, at any time. Happy to get it to you.
I do have information, however, as to the cost of it. So salary and benefits would be approximately $85,000.
I just had a follow-up on that, Liz. So 85,000, and then Ann had said a portion of that could be grant funded. Is that a number you do know, or you have to let us know about that? Meaning, what % of that 85 would be grant funded?
I do not know at this time. I know there are sources we'll be looking at that would help with that.
continue on down, and then we'll make another round. Claire, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Ethan?
Yeah, unrelated to that. My questions, as I'm looking at the budget, which was a 5.84% increase, was to look at where the money's coming from. So if it seems like I'm singling out an area, it's only because that's where the money went in the budget. As I worked it out, and I'm using your numbers, so I assume I'm correct, it was general and regular instruction was a 3.7% increase. The general support is 4.7, and that's against 3.2% for CPI for last year, and 3.8% if you take out food and energy. So the area that stood out to me, and again, it's not personal, but it's where the money is the 12.6% from pupil services. And some of it's just opaque because of the nature of the business, so. But one of the, I guess my question, and I'm not sure what I expect back, so if there is no answer, there is no answer. Like intensive academic had a 20.8% increase. There was an increase of students of 8.6%, and an increase in teachers of 3.5. Again, you're juggling a lot of numbers, but just wondering, is there something, because I think a number of if it was a perfect world and money was unlimited, I definitely liked or was in support what we heard tonight in terms of the Smith and Charter Oak, in terms of Duffy. They all have legit, but 5.8% is a high percentage to start with in my mind. So let me start with that intense academic, and then unfortunately I got a couple others.
No, I'm happy to provide context around that. I understand that a large driver, and that's why we really wanted to showcase it even up front in that graphic you have on the cover, is that special education is a large driver of our budget. And, I think it's important, and as I've come to the board table, I've really tried to explain the trends that we're seeing. They are not unique to West Hartford, but I will say that in many of the ways that West Hartford is a destination district for any student for public education, particularly in the area of special education, we are a destination district. And so what we have seen is that our rates, our incident rates have grown, but the trend within the trend that I want to keep describing and showcasing is that within our demographics of understanding that now almost 20% of our students have disabilities, that within that 20%, the students who have significant disabilities is much larger. And that's the reason why you're seeing a higher percentage of students at out-of-district placements. But it's important to know that the continuum of services we provide in district is in part to support students in staying in district and providing that constellation of more intensified services and supporting students who may have historically been only supported by an out-of-district student placement are now supported in district. But that's why you see the increase in our intensive academic programs. And you'll really see it starting to go from, as I shared in my last presentation regarding the Early Learning Center, we see those trends changing at the preschool level and then matriculating up to the elementary. So through our past budgets the past couple of years, we recently added an intensive academic center at Duffy that was historically not there. That program that started as one classroom is now 2 classrooms, and similarly we've seen that growth across all three other, so 4 intensive academic programs that are elementary schools. And what we're seeing for next year, which is reflected in the budget, is as that cohort of students matriculates up, that those numbers at the middle school will hence become larger. So we're adding another section at Sedgwick Middle School. So we do see a trend within the trend is that our students' needs are more complex and they require a larger constellation of services and needs.
No, and I understand. I mean, unfortunately, looking at it, it's sort of opaque because I'm
sure.
And the tuition services, it was like an average of $70,000 a student, which was a substantial increase from the prior year. And my concern is just sustainability. This is not going to get better, I assume. I don't. It's not like I have no solution or say do this or do that, but it's just very concerned looking forward.
I don't know if it's any consolation to know that we adhere to federal and state guidelines. We have a very tight, department in terms of making sure that we're following all of the state's guidance and the legal responsibilities that we have for our students. So I do think that the trend we're seeing is a legitimate trend, but I do think our density is a little bit higher because I think families seek out our programming.
No, I assume it's all legit.
Yeah.
My only concern or question was, is there a way we can look just because the numbers are so enormous? I mean, the increase dwarfs the rest of the budget. Not this, but all, I mean, I can go through, there was, resource program was up 12.6. Early learning up 29%, and again, 8% was teachers, and, you know, so there's something, it's just,
Yeah, no, I hear you, Ethan, and it is in response to, you know, the increase in dollars is in response to the increase in enrollment and identification of students, and it's in response to, you know, that increase of need. The other piece, you know, in terms of, hey, you know, I think we share some frustration in terms of how do we find caps, how do we find relief from it, and one of the things that is working against us in this very specific budget is the flat funding and then the decreased appropriation that we will receive for the excess costs for a lot of these, you know, because as we receive students that have more complex needs and where those services may be above and beyond, you know, the average cost per pupil significantly well above, we've historically relied on that state funding, and that state funding certainly in the last 2 years has been dramatically reduced, and it's having a significant budget. So, to me, you know, it becomes the thing that we're continuing to do. We're working with conversations with our legislators. We're having conversations with the State Department of Education. This is not something that's just impacting West Hartford, but West Hartford is putting its voice out there relative to this growing need. And so, respect what you're saying, but I want to underscore that this is not an area within our budget where we're not being extremely planful, and you know, I think has been demonstrated, the department has done a dramatic work to try to return students to the district. We know that we can program for our students here in district more efficiently than anywhere else, but at the same time, as families come to appreciate the better quality of programming that they get, that, you know, they're connected. They share with other parents who have similar needs, and we see an influx to the district for students that seek out our programming in the same way they seek out, you know, the other components of our outstanding educational system.
the thing I was gonna say is, I'm not asking to shortchange those kids, because.
No, I know that.
It's just, my concern is, somebody's gonna get shortchanged along the way, and some of it is, it only gives you can only raise so much. And if you're putting it here, you're not putting it there. I don't know what else to do, because there was nothing that stood out. It's just, was frustrating reading it and going, the increases are so big, just because of the nature of the, so that's all I have.
And if you don't mind, I just wanted to add some numbers to that. So Ethan, you had indicated, you know, overall it was a 12.6% increase, which you are correct. But, you know, as Paul said, our shortfall in state funding is 1.5 million. So that's actually 4% of that increase. Okay. If we were being funded, not at 100%, but at statutory levels.
The 85?
Yes, then the increase would be 8.6, still a large increase, but probably more in keeping with our experience. It's really that shortfall that's adding a 4% increase to that portion of the budget.
I mean, part of my issue is this year, but I see this getting worse next year and the year after.
And that's why we're really trying to advocate, as Paul said, with the state. I mean, this is affecting every district and really having a material impact. And it's a situation that really needs to be rectified at a state level as well.
Just follow up on that one.
Follow up and then Claire. Yes.
Claire, follow up. So Liz, if we were being funded the way we should be funded, what would be the savings to us?
So if we were funded at 100%, I think we calculated that it would be 2.5 million that the district would receive. They put in legislation which basically said if they do not have enough overall appropriation to fund all of the districts, then you'd be funded at a tier level. Our tier is 85%. If we were funded at that 85%, we would receive 1.5 million more. No, so they're anticipating the current year will get 68%. And so each year that they don't add additional funding overall or increase that appropriation overall, our percentage will get smaller.
So we went from 17% to 19% identified kids in 1 year, which if that trend continues, that's very serious change. Have you noticed over the years with RTI, the response to intervention, which was really put in place to start not over-identifying kids as special ed, to give them what they need in Tier 2 and Tier 3 services so that special ed isn't where they go. They get the help they need in smaller groups. And then have we seen a trend of less kids being identified through that program?
I don't know if we keep data on trends over time about whether or not SRBI, the system itself, prevents students from entering special education. What I will say is that West Hartford has a very robust tiered intervention system that does provide support to students as they need the support. So it might be for a short duration of time, for a reading skill, for example, for 6 to 8 weeks, and they might be released from that intervention, or it might be determined that the student might need a longer set of that intervention or a higher level of intervention. But I would have to turn over to curriculum to find out if there's any data taken around SRBI and its relationship to eligibility, but I don't have that statistic.
I believe our elementary education, where a lot of that initial work is done, although it's done throughout the system. I do believe we have a report. I don't have it handy, but I could certainly look into it, of some students who were in tiers and who were able to be exited from those tiers without entering special education. So I can take a look and report back.
Is it on the same topic? No. Oh, let me just add a fairness. Ethan, you're all set with your question? No. For now. Gail, any questions? Okay, we'll come back. Yes.
I was just going to add one more thing on that topic to Ethan's question. In response to other unfunded mandates, I do want to just point out that we also had the transition age change this year, which also probably greatly impacted our percentages, both in density and also in funding. So when they changed the legislation over the June legislative session for age of majority for our students of 22, historically they had been exiting at the date of their the day before their 23rd birthday. That changed for us over the summer, and it was implemented on July 1st. So that meant any students turning still 22 as of that date were afforded that full school year. And for us, that I think was 16 or 17 students, some of which were outplaced. So that did have a large financial impact for this school year, and that was an unfunded mandate from the state when they passed that.
Do you quantify that, or is it possible to what that would be?
We could quantify that and get you that number.
I think it would just be good to, I would feel better just, like when you guys talked about bring kids out from out of district to in district. I thought that was great, not only because the cost, but more importantly, it has to be better for the the kid.
Sure.
So, yeah, there's so many of these categories that are just, the increase is so big this year. Thank you.
Just and it's very the unique needs that the kids have. I think West Hartford does a good job at meeting them, but when you don't or you can't, they get outplaced. And by not adding the resources that we need to deal with an increase in population or whatever, we stand the risk of kids being outplaced. And the hope is that we can meet the needs of most kids. So it's very tricky. The increases are because the population increases, and we want to keep as many kids as we can in the school and meet the needs as we can.
Shannon.
So on page D66, I was just curious to get a little more background on the pay-to-play contribution line item of 217,500. It looks like it did not proceed in prior years and then sort of appeared, and then it carried forward for this year, and I wonder if that's an opportunity to redistribute.
So pay to play, as part of your budget book, there's a data supplement in the back.
Yep.
And the very last page of the data supplement on the
Has it,
bottom has a history of our pay to play fees.
Yep.
So pay to play fees were implemented in the 2004-2005 school year, is my understanding. And you can see there that starting then, parents started to pay approximately $75 to $100, or it might have even been a little bit before that it started, per sport, per child, with a cap, so that each family had a certain cap. And you can see the history there of how those fees increased over the years. When COVID hit, and we received ESSER funding, for the first year of ESSER funding, a decision was made that the ESSER funds would cover the entire contribution that parents used to make to play a sport. So parents at that point were paying $175 per sport with a $700 cap. So for 1 year, which was the 21-22 school year, the ESSER fund picked up the entire cost of that. It was approximately $415,000. For the 22-23 school year, ESSER picked up $75 per student per sport, and parents each paid $100 per sport with a $400 cap. As we looked at our needs and went forward with our ESSER funding, it was decided that we had some other priorities and that we would not be using those funds to cover that portion of the pay-to-play fee anymore. And then during budget adoption last year, the board adopted on the night of budget adoption to transfer that contribution of $75 per sport to the general fund. And so that's why you see it adopted for the first year in the school year that we are in. Did that make sense? So we are now at a point where parents pay $100 per sport with a $400 cap, and then the general fund makes a contribution of $75 per sport per student.
Before that, then the expectation was that you'd pay, what, up to $175 per
$175,
sport
exactly.
with a $700 cap.
$700 cap.
And I'm assuming there was a waiver for students who couldn't
Yes, there's
cover that
always a
cost.
waiver. If we have a student who is not able to make that payment, we completely waive the fee for them. We do not want to limit participation in any way based upon economic need.
So do we have a sense of what budget we would need to be able, like, do we need this full amount to cover that? I mean, we're obviously covering it for everyone now.
We're covering it for everyone right now. And so because we rolled that forward and have not changed it, that's why you see it in the 24-25 budget as
So
well.
there'd be an opportunity to revert back to the pre-COVID structure.
If that's what you decided. And in doing so, it would go back to $175 per sport with the $700 cap.
And what would that decrease the budget?
It would decrease it 200 and, I think
That
it's
217.5.
Yep,
Okay.
217.5,
Just pushing the cost back onto the parents.
Okay,
as it was
Subsidizing
before
it, yeah.
COVID.
gotcha.
Are there other extracurriculars, arts, music, band that are subsidized in the same way?
So I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that. You know, certainly if you rent an instrument, there is a fee to rent the instrument, but you do receive lessons. I don't know, Anne, if you feel like you have a better.
Yes, that would be, is it on? Yeah. That is a good example of the fee to rent an instrument. And some students, they do apply for waivers. There are other, years ago, I think the middle schools sometimes had a small activity fee, but they have gone away from that as well because it wasn't, I want to say, it didn't result in significant money and they didn't want any barriers, so that has gone away as well. And then the others, There are always, there's sometimes fees with things like AP testing or SAT testing, but those also have waivers. Anytime that there's hardship, those are, including summer school, those are accommodated.
So it looks like, after 19 years, an increase of 217,000 was added to the general fund to pay for pay-to-play. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was under ESSER that we first, so I haven't done the math, but after a significant period of time, yeah, there was conversation in around it, and ESSER was used to cover it initially, and then that was moved, with the subsidized amount moved into the general fund. So,
But as a board, we voted to add the elementary school counseling with that money. The ESSER money that went to pay-to-play was then reallocated to the school counselors that were part-time at both schools, correct? That was the vote that I believe we had at the board table, and then the budget went forward to the town council.
So it's my recollection that at the board table that night, it had already come out of ESSER, and you voted to add that as an expense in the general fund based on the discussion that you had at the table. The budget then went to the town council, and they added a small amount, it was approximately 66,000, that was used towards a counselor, I believe. I'm not sure if that was your question. Yeah.
So as the person who made the motion, so I do remember, it was originally there, all ESSER, and then a motion was made to put counselors in and take half of it away. And then it all went away, and then because the commitment had been originally to have it, I made the motion that we use that money, because to me, I just speak from my own personal, I don't think it's fair to parents, kids with play sports have to pay and nothing else gets paid, or relatively little. SAT and AP are not part of the school. School has no control on that. So, but we did add it back in as a vote.
So we increased the budget last year by 217,000 in the general fund to cover sports after not having covered it for 17 years. Until ESSER funds came along and the government gave us the money, we used that for pay-to-play. When that money went away, we took 217,000 of the education budget and spent it on dropping the pay-to-play. Is that?
That is what you decided.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And I think it is important to reflect back on events prior that give us insight into where we are now. And just want to be clear again with respect to how funds were reallocated with pay-to-play. And we are fortunate that ESSER was able to afford an opportunity to relinquish households from having to contribute or pay to pay-to-play. However, it was reallocated because we saw a pressing need at that time with respect to the mental health concerns of our youth and the learning loss. And again, this all happened as COVID was at its prime, so we could not anticipate where those needs were. So once we were made aware of them, that's where we allocated the ESSER funding. However, it did leave us to what are we going to do moving forward? And that's where we had this kind of titration piece in terms of the funding. And as we know, when we vote on our budget, it then goes to the town council, and from what they decide on, that is ultimately what we are able to use as the funding, and now as allocations are able to be made. So here we are. Here we are with the current budget. Here we are to discuss how to apply it appropriately. So we'll, again, questions, comments with respect to the proposed budget?
New topic?
Certainly, yes.
I'd like to turn to the topic of school counselors, which was a big topic earlier in the evening. Can you speak to what support services there will be left that the school counselors were covering? Is there anyone stepping into, fill some of those roles at the schools, or is it simply we're losing those 7 counselors and the services they provided?
So to give some context, when ESSER funds became available and the initial plan was created, the school counselors and the mental health coordinator were not part of the original plan. And as we kind of assessed where we were with our ESSER funds and how we were utilizing them, we actually came to the board table to make a proposal to change our utilization of the ESSER funds to include the 5 elementary school counselors and the mental health coordinator. And that was really designed to provide tiered intervention around students' emotional, behavioral, and mental health well-being at the elementary grades. And really purposefully, we designed it to be with counselors versus school social workers and psychologists because we really envisioned it being a tiered intervention model. We knew it was short-term, and what we wanted to do, because those 5 counselors were going to be spread across the 11 elementary schools, was to really put together a system by which we could intervene on short-term situations, provide students the support that they needed and the skill development that they would benefit from so that they could actualize self-regulation or social engagement, whatever skill they were working in their developmental scope. And so as we kind of looked at our ESSER positions that were all going away, and I don't know my total number in pupil services, it was quite a number, and we were really looking at what positions we were able to maintain and what positions we were sunsetting. Certainly, while they added a great value, there were also social worker positions that were part of the ESSER funds. And so, in looking at how we thought that scope would change and evolve, we had kept those social work positions that were already in ESSER funds. So the way that our system had functioned previous to the ESSER funds and utilizing the school counselors is that we did have an SRBI system where our clinical team members would support the SRBI needs of our students who might be requiring that support. This also partners with Aperture and, as you've heard, DESA, which was a state initiative around teacher rating scales for student mental health and well-being. It's done 3 times a year. The legislature on that, I believe, sunsets at the close of this year, and I don't believe we've received guidance. I know we're actively looking into it on whether or not that will continue. So those 2 initiatives kind of dovetailed and made sense together, but I don't know what the future for the DESA and Aperture will be at the state level, or if that's going to be something that districts need to purchase on their own. So those are some question marks that we have at this moment in time, but we do see that our previous system had functioned quite well for students, and we're hoping now that we're I can't believe I'm saying this, almost 4 years out from the pandemic when we were here in March of 2020. It seems like it could have been yesterday, but we're hoping that we can return to a previous system and supporting student needs through the tiered intervention in that model.
I was going to piggyback if I can, and then I don't want to interrupt your follow-up, but exactly what Ms. said. There were five positions at the elementary. There were another 2.8 positions, I believe, housed at the middle school, above and beyond our traditional staffing. And coming out of ESSER, one of the plans that I had with that, we knew these positions add great value. There's certainly no question to that. But when we went into it, the thought was that they would be short-term supporting, at the time, remember that first year coming out of the pandemic was very significant student dysregulation. And that's not to say that we haven't seen the increase in mental health needs. That's why, as Melissa pointed out, we had increased our number of social work positions by 2 overall. I don't know if you have the grand total number of social workers we have in the district, but they support between social work and then our school psychologists. We have a number across our schools. So we had to identify what were we going to do coming out of ESSER, and there were a couple of schools of thought. One was a step-down model where we moved away from 5, perhaps down to 4 or 3 in 1 year, and a couple more the following year until they went away. Or what we did instead was we said, hey, let's retain the social work positions because we know we need those. And then I looked at the administrative restructure. So, and looking at what could the role of an assistant principal be and changing sort of the nature of what the support looks like at the elementary level so that I can have an individual who can focus on that sort of that tier one and in terms of when a student's being dysregulated or when there needs to be some kind of a check-in. I know that was something that I heard this evening, that we have a dedicated person who's, in a job that has been redefined with that as a specific support. Previously, with the 5 counselors, every school had about a half a counselor, a little bit less. And the goal now is to be able to provide each school with a dedicated assistant principal to try to shore up that need, and then be able to maintain the social work hours with both the increased and mandated services that the social workers will see, but also with time for non-mandated services with others when the need is more significant. So that's the strategy that we've brought forward to you that I'm recommending, recognizing the great value if we were able to provide even more.
I just, so would the AP be like the restorative justice guru, the one that knows the most about it? They would deal with the discipline issues, but also be the kind of like the connection about behavior, because they would run the 504s, the IEPs, but not have the social work background for the counseling.
Correct. We do see them as having significant responsibilities with student relations, student regulation, student discipline. That would certainly touch within, restorative practices, and we would be outfitting a multi-year training program for them that's inclusive of 504 practices, special education practices, restorative practices, student discipline, all of those things. Just by nature of the new job and the new expectations, we would be looking at professional learning that's going to support them in their jobs, and looking at the structures in terms of meetings with these things as a focus, and bringing in folks who will help support them.
Okay. And would the current social workers and psychologists within each elementary school have any schedule flexibility to do any unmandated support and help in a classroom setting as a whole group? Would they have any, or are they, how tight is their schedule with their mandated hours?
Sure. So all of our social workers and psychologists do carry at times non-mandated students because they do respond to the needs across a given school. And with the additional 3.2 positions that are in the budget, and as we look at student need and density across the district, will continue to look at how those allocations fall. Similar to teacher allocations, we look at, where is the density of need, and that's really based on IEPs and overall population of a given school. So as we look at that, we shift our allocations year to year based on our students and their needs. So there will continue to be room for non-mandated services if needed.
Other questions? Yes.
I don't know if you have this offhand, but what would be the cost of carrying, let's say, a social worker forward? What does that look like? Counselor, I'm sorry.
So I would estimate it's probably about, it's a little over 100, and it's because typically the counselors hold a higher, have a higher level of education, so they are in a different lane in our contract.
Is that just salary or benefits also?
That includes benefits as well. And again, that's an average. It would depend on the individual and, their experience.
Any follow-up to that? Are you all set? All right. Questions?
I have one more.
Yes.
With the mental health coordinator and then the 5 counselors, I'm assuming the mental health coordinator had a higher salary and kind of coordinated the counselors, or did they actually have student time? And I guess, would the counselors work independently of the mental health coordinator?
So I can't speak to the pay. I'll let Liz answer any financial questions, but the mental health coordinator really supported the structure of the counselors in monitoring, the groups when they're, looking at data, analyzing data. It was not a student-facing position, although we've leveraged Kim Doyle, who's been in that position, who is an excellent clinician for more challenging cases across the elementary schools during her time in the tenure, supporting the clinical teams and the school counselors should the need arise. But the position itself has been more facing of staff and supporting the staff and reviewing data, determining when students had progressed, and then making, supporting teams and making determinations if they need the next level of support or can be exited from support.
And I'll just add a piece, there's also the development of some of those classroom lessons. I mean, we were standing up a program and essentially trying to build a framework and a curriculum for when the elementary counselors would go into a classroom and deliver some instruction front end, aside from the work that they would do one-on-one with students or with small groups. So that was also a responsibility of that. And again, to Melissa's point, how it was more adult-centric than it was student-facing.
Other questions
On that topic?
on any topic? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question.
Claire and then Gail.
Are there any good surprises that have happened since you submitted the budget with any estimated fund that's, cost that's now reduced? Has there been any change that would be good news?
Well, I'm aware that Andy found $1.25 in the couch. No. Actually, as we heard at the town council budget, and I believe, the board, you guys are aware of this, that there was a favorable updated estimate to the health savings, and I know that Liz can give an explanation of that in detail. I could, but I don't want to steal her thunder.
So at the time we put the budget together, we had only an estimate from the state as to what the increase in the premiums for the state partnership plan would be. And they had said that they would be between 3% and 5%, and so we budgeted 5% in order to be conservative based upon our experience with the state partnership plan and what their increases have been over the past couple of years. We've since been notified that the increase is lower than anticipated. While their dental increase was 5%, and their Medigap increase was 5%. The retiree health increase percent was 3%, and the active health insurance premium increase averaged 2%. It wasn't 2 across the board, but it averaged 2. So we have had some positive news there.
Do you have a ballpark number on that? Is that 100,000 or more?
At this point, I'm estimating it's approximately 250,000.
Is it a follow-up? Yes.
Yeah. Where would that be in the budget? Is that under general or is that under regular?
So the appropriation for all of our health insurance is under general support services.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
My question is regarding the issue on class size at Duffy. And I finding it a little bit confusing, and I'm just wondering if it can be explained as to why it seems that Duffy has larger classes overall as opposed to some of our other schools.
Sure, I'll make some initial comments and then certainly let the team add anything that I miss. So the way that the class sizes work is we operate within the board adopted class size guidelines, which is to say that in grades K through 3, we would expect classes to be 23 or less, and in grades 4 and 5, we would build classes so that they are 27 or less. with the exception that for Smith and Charter Oak, our two magnet schools, we reduce those guidelines by 2 for each of those, so 21 and 25 respectively. Now, while those guidelines are in place, the students don't necessarily fall uniformly across our schools. So whatever we see for an incoming student population, we will simply take the sum total of that population and divide by the number of sections in order to achieve that class size guideline. It is it is entirely a function of the populations of the neighborhoods when it comes out. But you do see areas where you can have perhaps a smaller cohort of students who are coming from an individual neighborhood that is simply above, say, as soon as it's above 23, we need to break it into a second section. But if it only achieves a total population of 30 or 32, your class sizes will only be 15 or 16. Whereas it has the room to grow all the way up into the mid 40s before we would start thinking about an additional section break. At Duffy at this time, you know, and you have, and it is page 2 of your data supplement, you have the projected class sizes for each of the elementary schools based on our enrollment projections. You do see that they have cohorts attending the neighborhood schools that are essentially in the upper 80s through multiple grades in 1, 2, or 3, which will drive class sizes that are below the 23 guideline, but in the low 20s. You see some low 20s or some lower 20s realistically throughout a lot of our schools. They just happen, our projections at this point in time just happen to be that they're getting, if they're getting 8 students extra as spread across four sections, then their class averages will be 2 students higher.
So, I mean, is there a sense that, you know, if Duffy's classes are persistently higher than the other schools, that becomes an issue over time because there's constantly more kids in those classes, and obviously teacher resources, things are spread thinner?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to roll back any one of these projections, I can see that there may be, and I'm just looking at a line above, there may be 1 to 2, if not 3, higher through those K3 grades, and then when that rolls into 4 and 5, you have a higher ceiling up to 27. We're seeing that. So it's an interesting question. If the board wanted to have a class size guideline, let's just say across the board, with fewer than 20 students, you need an additional 40 teachers in order to do so, which I would imagine is relatively untenable, not only from the cost, but realistically from the space. I don't know that we have 20 classroom spaces. If you wanted to even be at 22 or lower, that would take between 18 and 20 additional FTEs. And again, there's the cost obstacle to that, but even at that level, there's a space. If you were looking at grades 4 and 5, and you wanted to get to 23 or lower, that would be between 5 and 8 additional FTEs. And if you wanted to simply have less than 25 versus the 27, that would take a minimum of 4 FTEs. So it's, and it's not contained to Duffy. I can see that Duffy has had some large cohorts, but that's where I say the 4 FTEs, you know, that there are, there's a cohort at Morley in 5th grade that has 2 sections at 25 projected, as there is at Whiting Lane. It is absolutely true when you look at Duffy's cohorts, however, you can see a number of their grade levels approaching that those class size guidelines. You know, they're trending at 22s with a class size guideline at 23.
I think what I was maybe alluding to, probably not well, but alluding to would be, is there a place, if you see this persistently at Duffy, that you maybe look at, I guess, some kind of redistricting so that overall the class sizes are more uniform across the district as opposed to, some schools have
Oh,
this. Yeah.
absolutely. I know that was mentioned at the table in terms of a potential long-range solution, and if that's something that the board wanted us to entertain, that would be that'd be a significant undertaking, with I imagine with significant public interest. But
And the reason I'm bringing it up is because we did have, Anne gave us a presentation earlier in the year where, we see some of our academic scores have, it's okay, have gone down, and the gap for the minority students is even greater. And I just wonder if some of the, some of this could be impacted by class size. And since, I think academics is obviously one of the main focuses of education, if this is something that we want to persistently, and maybe it won't be persistently, I guess it's, I understand things can change depending on who moves into the neighborhood, but if we would want to think about that, going forward, that we have smaller classes that are sort of across the board in all of our schools.
sure. Well, that's two different. I think that's two very, very big, very valid, very important conversations, but I do think they're two distinct conversations. I think the conversation about the impact of class size and student achievement, it's a very large conversation. I'm never going to not advocate for us to have smaller class sizes. I think that would be just immensely a positive thing. But if we're having the conversation about class size and student achievement, we are really talking about class size guidelines. We are really talking about those bigger numbers of FTE impact, and in order to do so equitably across our schools. And we would want to look at that closely, because there's a significant body of research around that, and results on that can be very mixed. A lot of the research, I've heard quoted or seen in a number of the emails is some STAR research that, this was research done in the 80s. It was done in the mid to southwest, and it was really focused on primary grades as opposed to upper elementary grades. There's research also done in Connecticut. There's research done in Florida that didn't have those same results. That's not me saying I don't support smaller classes. I 100% support smaller classes. But I think it's a question of the magnitude of what we're trying to accomplish with it. There's one of the things that we've pushed on for years and years, operating within the class size guidelines that we have, is additional research that speaks to the effect of instructional strategies and student relationships, and the effect size that has on student achievement, which is very significant. Now, in the best of both worlds, we would have very small class sizes, very effective instructional practices, very, very strong student relationships. And I think our teachers do absolutely amazing work within the confines that we have. If we're talking about the Duffy trend specifically, though, that becomes more of a redistricting. And it's an interesting question. I can't say that I know that families in the Duffy neighborhood want redistricting. I certainly hear a very clear message. They would like smaller class sizes. And to alter the class size guidelines to achieve that would be, and to do so equitably, would be, it'd be significant based on how big or small you'd like to go with that. And I think that would be something that the board would want to have a lot of conversation around. I don't know if I'm missing anything big that the team wants to add.
You mentioned schools, the number of rooms. Does Duffy have excess rooms? I assume not, but I figured I'd ask.
Duffy has spaces that could be used as additional classrooms if needed, but they're currently being used for interventions and other pieces. There'll be more of a crunch next year as well, because remember, we're going to be replacing the windows and the HVAC in the school that will start this summer, but will continue through all of next year as well. We're putting 4 portables in the courtyard, if you remember the plan, and we'll be shuttling different classrooms out of and around the building as we go through the building doing different areas.
So it's already a struggle.
It's a struggle.
Okay, thank you.
There's not a lot of space, as Liz pointed out when we did the enrollment in the facilities piece. There's not a lot of excess space in any of our buildings at this point. The nature of education has shifted over time, and it's not simply classroom. It's spaces being used for speech and language, for other interventions.
So I am a big fan of smaller class size. This is a big discussion, and in a year where we're losing $5 million in federal funding, taking on a class size guideline change for the board would be very costly, especially it's the infrastructure, but it's also all the teachers that you would have to hire to make the size equitable. And as you mentioned, we do have a couple other schools. I've had 28 in a classroom. I've had 27. Some of the letters bothered me because I know the wonderful things that teachers do, no matter how many kids are in their class. And I also know that a class of 20, based on the makeup, can feel like a class of 30. So it's all about classroom management. It's about relationship. Smaller is better, but I know that Duffy teachers are doing a great job in classes of 24 and 25, and I've seen them do it. So it's too bad that we have such large class sizes, but changing that as a board is a serious conversation that we have to have, and all the financial implications that come with it.
Other questions on any topic? Budget related, that is. Ethan.
So I was surprised by Claire's question, but better impressed by the answer. So I figure I'll ask the opposite. Is there any other negative surprises? Not that I want any, but.
I'm not aware of any other negative surprises.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Comments? I have a question or thought, and please help me as I am absorbing all of this. So, and we all knew that this was going to be a significant year with the sunsetting of the ESSER funding. And again, appreciate how when we initially received the funding 4 years ago, Melissa's golly, that's 4 years ago, we knew it was a blessing at the time, but that would not be there forever. And so appreciate the time and energy that has been put into crafting a budget to meet the needs. And I guess I want to ensure that what has been addressed in terms of how things have been allocated is addressing needs, not wants. Correct? Wants. They're needs these are things that we need.
These are 100% needs. I think, again, I'll go back, the outpouring from the community demonstrated the value that they put on education and what we do, and really I hear, asking for more, and rightly so. I don't fault anyone for that. But that kind of operates from our budget methodology of looking at the programs that we have that are in existence, that I hope are transparent to all in terms of what it is that we do, rolling that forward, and then identifying within that, okay, out of those things that we do, let's look at the size, let's try to look at where do we need to add, where might we subtract, and then having those very, very difficult kind of decisions around everything that we have in the budget is value added, but what are the things that we, if we had to live without, what would they be? And then providing that to the public so that they can weigh in and provide you with input as to, are those the decisions that we want to make?
Appreciate that, thank you. And so with the value added and with how ESSER funding was allocated, again, we know it was to go towards those things that were directly impacted by the pandemic. Is it fair to say, you may not be able to answer this question, that in hindsight, where some of those allocations were, brought attention to needs that predated COVID, that were always there? All right. All right.
Yeah, I was moved by the gentleman that said, that we're all fighting back, but the ESSER funds were things that we've always needed. We got them to get through this time, but they filled holes that we needed to fill before COVID. And so now we're left with not having the money, and how do we ignore these holes that we found how much we needed the help, and it's hard.
All right. So,
I just
yes.
wanted to add one thing. We talked a little bit about our use of the ESSER funds and the manner in which we use them. And clearly, one of the decisions that we made during this process was to reduce elementary class size, both for safety reasons, because we just couldn't have as many kids in a classroom, and also to really look at learning recovery. And I just wanted to point out one schedule that I thought might be helpful in demonstrating that. In our data supplement, we have some enrollment information. So the data supplement is the last tab in your book. And if you look at page 2 of your data supplement, we had presented this information when we went over enrollment, but I think it's important to this conversation. You can see the distribution of classes based on section sizes. So we go from 15 or fewer up to 28 or more. And there's a 5-year history there. So when you look at 1920, which was the year of the pandemic, we started that year, we had 199 sections. And if you look at the distribution, you can see that, when you get to the 21 section size, there were 36 classes. We had 16 of 22, 14 of 23, 12 of 24, et cetera. That was really the distribution that we had been experiencing and we're used to, and those were the class sizes that had been accepted. And if you look at the next 3 years, you can really see we made a concerted effort to reduce those because of learning recovery, but also for health and safety reasons, and how close we had students sitting next to each other, et cetera. So then when we look at our 23-24, which is the current year, you can see we're just starting to shift back to our pre-pandemic levels. So I think that this feels like a big change, but what we're really trying to do is a gradual change back to where we were pre-pandemic. I don't know if we'll actually, get all the way back there, but this is kind of a small step towards that. And so I just wanted you to be able to see that trend if it's helpful for you.
Thank you, yes. Other thoughts or comments, teammates? Right, well, we have a lot to digest, a lot to continue absorbing, and a lot to think through as we prepare to come together again on Thursday, April the 4th. Again, that's Thursday. There's no school on Tuesday, so on Thursday, where we will vote on the budget. So thank you so very much again for what you've shared, and we will close out this budget workshop at 9:42.